Mike Anderson here, the Reno Fly Shop. Today we are tying a copper wino, Pyramid Lake Midge. You could use this pretty much anywhere, and if you wanted to make this the albino wino, all you do is put a white bead instead of the copper one. So the hook we're using today is a Firehole 316 in a size 10. Really like this hook, super sticky. It will penetrate the fish's mouth nicely and is also super strong. I like the curve and the bend to it as well. And then we're putting on a 3.3 or 3.5 actually copper bead from Firehole as well, the Firehole stones. First thing we're going to do is just put a thread layer. I use 14-aught Vivus. You want to keep these midges nice and skinny. Fish typically don't want a fat midge, so I'm going to start by building a little taper right up at the bead. Okay, and then from here I'm going to tie in my wire, just a copper wire, brassy size from UTC. I'm going to keep this on my side of the shank, and I want to keep it on my side the entire way down, so basically you're not going to see this, hopefully, if I did this right. And that just helps hold the profile a little bit, keeps it from getting too big again for those midges. I'm going to take that about halfway down through the bend. And then I have holographic wine on a spool here. I like the spool, and you'll see why in a bit. It just helps keep everything organized, and I also do a little trick to really help wind these quickly when you're trying to tie a bunch of them. So I'm just going to trap it in, walk it up the shank. If it starts to get stuck, what I like to do is back off a couple wraps until I can pull. There we go. Once I get to pull it, there we go. I can lock it down a little bit better. Tie this in all the way to where I tied in that copper. Now we just have to worry about getting the taper now. So I already have it started up where my thread is now, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'm more going to worry about evening out this little bump from the tie-in spot and the bump that I made here. So I'm going to come backwards, get right at that little bump. Doesn't take a lot of thread to kind of get rid of that little bit of a bump, so that's already pretty much gone. So now I'm going to work on the taper. I come to the top. I'm going to come down the bug till about the 3/4 mark. Boom. Come back up. Trying to do as pretty close to touching wraps as I can here. And I'm going to go to halfway, right around there. Come back up, and only about 1/4 of the way down. About there, come back up. Here I like to put a little half hitch, just kind of saves my place just in case my thread should break. So here's why I put the holographic on a bobbin. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the vise upside down, that's why it's nice to have a rotary vise. And I'm going to actually twist my bobbin counterclockwise, and you're not going to be able to see that too well, but what I'm doing is I'm putting turns into my holographic here. And then from here, I am just going to spiral it around. And those turns that I put in to the holographic tinsel, as I am winding them, you're putting half turns into your, in this case, holographic material, but it would be thread. So basically I just unwound that. You can see after I tie it in that my thread or my hollow tinsel is pretty flat right now. So tie it off, catch it, tie it off. I'm going to put a little bit of pressure when I go to cut this off. That way I don't get a big tag sticking out. Reorient the vise. And then I'm going to bring this up. I'm not too worried about counter ribbing. The fish out at Pyramid have big enough teeth that typically they're going to ruin a fly anyway pretty quick. So I'm not going to counter rib, and also I'm going to put a layer of epoxy on, and that will help to hold all those fibers in place. So tie that off. I'm using black thread too to give this a little black collar. Again, just a little something different in there. And then from here, it's a whip finish. So nice and tight. Now, if you're using that 3.5 bead, they have a tendency, if you tied them thin enough, to kind of be a little loose. And that's where I'll just do a couple of whip finishes until, oop, that broke off. A couple of whip finishes until you kind of build up that little space again. So this is one of the things that's tough about 14-aught thread is sometimes they don't like whip finishes, and I broke it. So reattach, do the whip finish again. We'll do the 2 again. And as always, when you're cutting off thread, you don't actually want to cut. It doesn't matter too much on this pattern because of the there's no materials down here, but you always just want to leave your scissors open and then just kind of push forward instead of actually slicing. And then from here, I use Solarez Bone Dry as my resin epoxy. Bone Dry, it's nice because it's really not tacky when it's done, and it cures pretty much instantly. Especially I use the laser diode from Deer Creek. And that's it. So that's the copper wino out at Pyramid Lake. I tied these in all the way to a size 8 in the same hook, and then all the way down to like a 14. Not so often. I have a few of them in the box, but not too many. Typically, it's going to be a 10 or a 12. So go out there, give this fly a try. It's been catching fish, especially in the spring. So good luck out there.